Martin, what is this? My voice trembled as I held up the crumpled receipt I found tucked inside his jacket pocket. The date on it was from last weekend, when he claimed to be on a business trip. Martin glanced at the slip of paper and sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. Clara, it's just a receipt. Why are you making a big deal out of it? A big deal? I echoed, my pulse quickening. It's from a hotel, Martin. In a city you weren't supposed to be in. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. You're overreacting. I had to change plans last minute. It's part of my job. I wanted to believe him, but the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. The whispers of doubt had been growing louder for months. Late nights, secretive phone calls, and now this. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Do you think I'm stupid? My voice rose, the anger bubbling to the surface. I've seen the messages, Martin. I know about Gabriella. His face paled, and for a moment I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. But it was quickly replaced by a cold, calculating stare. So you've been snooping around? Don't turn this on me. I snapped, my hands shaking. Who is she, Martin? How long has this been going on? He turned away, his shoulders tense. It doesn't matter, Clara. What's done is done. I felt like the ground was slipping away beneath me. This was the man I'd devoted my life to, the father of my children. And now, he was tearing our family apart with his lies. How could you do this to us? I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. To me. Martin remained silent, his back still turned. The weight of his betrayal pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed a plan. As the days passed, I feigned ignorance, biding my time. I became a detective in my own home, collecting evidence of his deceit. There were trinkets from romantic getaways, love letters hidden in his office drawer, and photos of him with Gabriella, a woman I vaguely remembered from a decade ago. She had been a coworker of Martin's, someone who mysteriously vanished from our social circle. Kate, my loyal and supportive friend, was my confidant through it all. You need to confront him, Clara, she urged one evening over a cup of tea. He can't get away with this. I know, I replied, my voice steady. But I need to be smart about it. I need to gather everything I can before I confront him. Kate nodded, her eyes filled with concern. Just promise me you won't let him break you. You're stronger than this. Her words gave me strength, and I delved deeper into the web of lies Martin had spun. Each new piece of evidence was a dagger to my heart, but it also fueled my determination. I found out about his plot to leave me after securing a promotion at work, a plan that would leave me financially vulnerable after years of supporting him. The day of his promotion arrived, and I was ready. Kate stood by my side as I confronted Martin in our living room, the evidence spread out on the coffee table like a damning puzzle. Martin, I began, my voice unwavering, we need to talk. He looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from annoyance to shock as he saw the evidence laid out before him. Clara, what is this? This, I said, pointing to the photos and letters, is the truth. You've been lying to me, to our family, and I won't stand for it any longer. He tried to deny it at first, but the weight of the evidence was undeniable. Finally, he admitted it. I've fallen out of love with you, Clara. I've been planning to leave you for Gabriella. The words cut deep, but they also set me free. Then it's over, I declared. I'm done being your fool. We're getting a divorce. As I walked out of the room, Kate squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, Clara. Now, it's time to rebuild your life. And with that, I took the first step on my journey of resilience and revenge, determined to reclaim my life and find happiness once more. Feigning ignorance wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Every day, I played the role of the unsuspecting wife, all the while collecting pieces of Martin's betrayal. The house felt like a stage, and I was the lead in a tragic play, knowing the curtain would soon fall. One evening, while Martin was in the shower, I rummaged through his office. My hands shook as I opened his desk drawer, praying I wouldn't get caught. There, among the usual clutter, I found a small velvet box. My heart pounded as I lifted the lid to reveal an elegant bracelet, something I'd never seen before. It was delicate and beautiful, clearly chosen with care. This wasn't for me. I snapped a photo of it with my phone and quickly replaced the box. My mind raced. How many more secrets was he hiding? I needed more evidence, something concrete that would leave no room for his lies. Days later, I found what I was looking for. Tucked inside one of his old briefcases were love letters from Gabriella. Each one was a dagger to my heart, filled with sweet nothings and promises of a future together. I read them all, my anger growing with every word. This was the bitter reality of his deceit. That night, I called Kate. I found the letters. I whispered, my voice trembling. "Oh, Clara," she said softly. "I'm so sorry. I need to confront him, but I want to be smart about it. I need to know everything. Do you think he's planning something?" Kate asked, concern lacing her voice. "I don't know, but I have a feeling there's more to this. I need to dig deeper." Kate was silent for a moment. "You know I'm here for you, whatever you need." "Thank you, Kate. I don't know what I'd do without you." The next day, I decided to follow Martin. He'd mentioned a dinner meeting with a client, but I wasn't buying it. I trailed behind him, my heart pounding in my chest. He drove to a quaint little restaurant on the outskirts of town, the kind of place we used to go to when we were first married. I watched from a distance as he walked inside, my stomach in knots. A few minutes later, Gabriella arrived. She looked just as I remembered, young, vibrant, and completely unaware of the chaos she was causing in my life. I snapped photos of them together, my hands shaking. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. I had everything I needed to confront him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in my mind. How had we gotten here? What had I done to deserve this? But those thoughts were quickly replaced by a burning desire for justice. He couldn't get away with this. Not after everything we'd been through. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, the evidence spread out before me. The bracelet, the letters, the photos. It was time. I couldn't wait any longer. "Martin," I called out as he came down the stairs. "We need to talk." He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "What is it now, Clara?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I know about Gabriella. I know everything." His face paled, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. But he quickly composed himself. "Clara, you're being ridiculous." "Am I?" I said, holding up the letters. "I found these. And the bracelet. And I saw you with her last night." His jaw clenched, and he took a step closer. "You've been spying on me?" "Don't turn this on me," I snapped. "You've been lying to me, to our family. How long has this been going on?" He remained silent, his eyes cold and distant. "Answer me," I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. "Fine," he said finally. "It's been years. I'm in love with her, Clara. And I'm leaving you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I refused to let him see me break. "You think you can just walk away? After everything I've done for you?" "I've made up my mind," he said, his voice cold and final. "Then you'll be hearing from my lawyer," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done being your fool." As he turned to leave, I felt a surge of determination. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I was going to make sure he paid for every lie, every betrayal. And with Kate by my side, I knew I could do it. After the confrontation with Martin, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The truth was out, but the battle had just begun. As I sat alone in the quiet house, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. I needed to understand how deep Martin's betrayal went, and that meant revisiting the past. Gabriella. The name echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. She had been a part of our lives once, a coworker of Martin's who disappeared from our social circle about a decade ago. Now she was back, and the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together. That evening, I called Kate. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice tinged with urgency. "Come over," she replied without hesitation. When I arrived at Kate's house, she greeted me with a warm hug. "What's going on, Clara?" "I've been thinking about Gabriella," I began, sitting down on her couch, Do you remember her? She used to work with Martin. Kate nodded slowly. Yes, I remember. She was always so friendly. What about her? She vanished from our lives so suddenly, I continued. And now she's back, involved with Martin. It can't be a coincidence. Kate's eyes widened. You think something happened back then? I don't know, I admitted. But I need to find out. There's more to this than just an affair. Kate leaned forward, her expression serious. What do you need me to do? Help me dig into Gabriella's past, I said. Maybe there's something there that can help us understand what's really going on. Over the next few days, Kate and I became amateur detectives, scouring social media and old contacts for any information about Gabriella. We discovered she had left her job abruptly and moved out of state. There were rumors of a scandal, but nothing concrete. It was frustrating, but we were determined. Then, one afternoon, I received a call from an old friend who used to work with Martin and Gabriella. I heard you're looking for information about Gabriella, she said cautiously. Yes, I replied, my heart racing. Do you know anything? There were rumors, she began, her voice low. Gabriella was involved with someone at work. It caused quite a stir, and she left shortly after. Do you know who she was involved with? I asked, already suspecting the answer. There was a pause. I can't say for sure, but people suspected it was Martin. I closed my eyes, the pieces falling into place. Thank you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. After hanging up, I called Kate. We need to talk, I said. I've found something. We met at a quiet cafe, and I relayed the conversation to her. It makes sense, she said, her brow furrowed. But why did she come back now? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm going to find out. That evening, I decided to confront Martin again. He was in his office, typing away on his laptop. We need to talk, I said, my voice firm. He looked up, annoyance flickering across his face. What now, Clara? I spoke to someone who used to work with you and Gabriella, I said, watching his reaction closely. They told me about the rumors. His face paled, and he stood up abruptly. You've been digging into the past? What's the point? The point is, I need to understand why she's back, I said, my anger simmering. What happened back then? Martin's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. It doesn't matter, he said finally. It was a long time ago. But it does matter, I insisted. Because it's affecting our lives now. He took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping. Fine. Gabriella and I had an affair back then. It ended badly and she left. I thought it was over. Clearly it wasn't, I said, my voice trembling. Why did she come back? I don't know, he admitted, his voice hollow. She reached out to me a few months ago. Said she wanted to reconnect. And you just fell back into it? I asked, disbelief coloring my tone. Martin looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I was weak. I'm sorry, Clara. Sorry wasn't enough. Not anymore. This isn't over, I said, my voice steely. I'm going to find out the truth, and you're going to pay for what you've done. As I walked out of the room, I felt a surge of determination. The past was catching up to us, and I was going to uncover every secret, no matter the cost. The days following my confrontation with Martin were a blur of anger and determination. I couldn't let him get away with his betrayal, not after everything I'd sacrificed for our marriage. But the more I dug, the more I realized how deep his deceit ran. One evening, while sorting through old financial records, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. There were large sums of money being transferred from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize. The dates coincided with Martin's so-called business trips. My hands shook as I printed out the statements. This wasn't just an affair. He was siphoning our money to fund his new life with Gabriella. I called Kate immediately. You need to come over, I said, my voice barely steady. She arrived within minutes, her face etched with concern. What's wrong, Clara? I handed her the statements. Look at this. He's been draining our accounts. Kate's eyes widened as she scanned the documents. This is serious. You need to confront him about this. I will, I said, my resolve hardening. But I need to be smart about it. I need to protect myself. Kate nodded. You should talk to a lawyer. Make sure you know your rights before you confront him. The next day, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Sitting in her office, I laid out everything I'd discovered. She listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each piece of evidence. You have a strong case, she said finally, but you need to act quickly. If he's planning to leave, he might try to take more money or assets with him. I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. What do I need to do? First, we need to freeze the accounts, she said. That will prevent him from taking any more money. Then, we'll file for divorce and request a temporary restraining order to keep him from accessing any joint assets. It was a lot to take in, but I knew it was necessary. Let's do it, I said, my voice steady. That evening, I returned home, my mind racing with plans and strategies. I needed to confront Martin, but I also needed to protect myself. As I sat in the living room, the front door opened, and Martin walked in. He looked tired, but there was a smugness in his eyes that made my blood boil. We need to talk, I said, standing up. He sighed, rolling his eyes. What now, Clara? I held up the financial statements. Care to explain these? His face paled, and he snatched the papers from my hand. Where did you get these? It doesn't matter, I said, my voice cold. What matters is that you've been stealing from our accounts. Martin's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. Oh, really? I said, my anger bubbling to the surface. Then explain it to me. Explain why you've been draining our money. He took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping. I needed the money for Gabriella. She's been going through a tough time. A tough time? I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. You're destroying our lives for her? I didn't have a choice, he said, his voice hollow. She needed help. And what about me? I demanded. What about our family? Martin looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Clara. I never meant for it to go this far. Sorry isn't enough, I said, my voice trembling with rage. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The accounts are frozen, and I'm filing for divorce. His head snapped up, shock and fear in his eyes. You can't do this. I can and I will, I said, my resolve unshakable. You've left me no choice. As I walked out of the room, I felt a surge of empowerment. This was just the beginning. I was going to rebuild my life, no matter what it took. The next morning, I received a call from my lawyer. We've filed the paperwork, she said. But there's something you need to know. Martin has been planning to move all your shared assets to an offshore account. We need to act fast to prevent it. My heart raced. What do I need to do? Meet me at the bank, she said. We'll need your authorization to secure everything. I hung up, my mind spinning. This was it, the final showdown. I grabbed my keys and headed to the bank, determination fueling every step. Martin had underestimated me, but he was about to learn just how strong I could be. The bank's sterile environment did nothing to calm my nerves. I sat across from my lawyer, a stern woman named Ms. Reed, as she explained the next steps. We need to act quickly to secure your assets, she said, her voice firm. I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. Let's do it. Ms. Reed signaled the bank manager, who began the process of freezing the accounts and transferring the necessary funds to a secure account in my name. I watched as numbers and figures flashed on the screen, each one representing a piece of my future that Martin had tried to steal. When we were done, Ms. Reed turned to me. You've done the right thing, Clara. This will protect you and ensure he can't take anything more. Thank you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. The weight of what I'd just done settled heavily on my shoulders, but it was a necessary burden. As I left the bank, my phone buzzed. It was Kate. How did it go? She asked. We secured the accounts, I said, relief mingling with exhaustion. But there's something else. Martin was planning to move everything to an offshore account. Kate's gasp echoed through the phone. That's serious, Clara. What are you going to do? I need to confront him, I said, my resolve hardening. But first, I need to talk to Gabriella. She's a part of this, whether she likes it or not. Do you want me to come with you? Kate offered, her voice filled with concern. No, I said, taking a deep breath. I need to do this alone. Later that day, I drove to Gabriella's house, my mind racing with thoughts of what I would say. When I arrived, I took a moment to steady myself before knocking on the door. Gabriella opened it, her face a mask of surprise. Clara, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She hesitated but stepped aside to let me in. The house was tastefully decorated, a stark contrast to the chaos in my heart. I followed her to the living room, where we sat down facing each other. What is this about? She asked, her voice wary. I know about you and Martin, I said, watching her reaction closely. And I know about the money. Her eyes widened and she looked away, guilt evident on her face. I didn't want it to be like this, she said softly. Then why did you come back? I demanded, my anger bubbling to the surface. Why now, after all these years? Gabriella took a deep breath, her hands trembling. I made a mistake back then. I thought I could move on, but I couldn't. I reached out to Martin because I wanted to make things right. Make things right? I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. You've destroyed my life, Gabriella. How is that making things right? Tears welled up in her eyes. I'm sorry, Clara. I never meant to hurt you. Sorry isn't enough, I said, my voice trembling with rage. You've been complicit in his deceit, and now you need to face the consequences. Gabriella looked down, her shoulders slumping. What do you want me to do? Tell me everything, I demanded. Every detail. I need to know what I'm up against. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Martin and I started seeing each other again a few months ago. He promised me a future. Said he would leave you once he secured his promotion. The money was supposed to be for us, to start a new life. And you believed him? I asked, incredulous. I wanted to, she admitted. But now I see he was just using me. I took a deep breath, the pieces of the puzzle finally coming together. Thank you for being honest, I said, standing up. But this isn't over. You need to be prepared for what's coming. As I left her house, I felt a surge of determination. Martin had underestimated both of us, but now we were united in our resolve to bring him down. When I got home, I found Martin waiting for me, his face a mask of anger. What have you done? He demanded, holding up the bank statements. I've protected myself, I said, my voice steady. And I've spoken to Gabriella. She's ready to testify against you. His face twisted with rage. You think you can take me down? You're nothing without me, Clara. Maybe, I said, my voice calm. But I'm stronger than you think. And I'm not alone. As he stormed out of the house, I felt a newfound sense of empowerment. This was just the beginning. I was ready to fight for my future, no matter what it took. The day of Martin's promotion dawned with a heavy sense of foreboding. I knew this was the moment everything would come to a head. As I prepared, I felt a mix of fear and determination. Today, I would confront Martin with everything I had, and there would be no turning back. Kate arrived early, her presence a comforting anchor. Are you ready? She asked, her eyes filled with concern and support. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, taking a deep breath. Let's do this. We drove to Martin's office, my heart pounding with each passing mile. The promotion ceremony was in full swing when we arrived, the room filled with colleagues and well-wishers. Martin stood at the front, basking in the applause, his smile wide and confident. It made my blood boil. As the applause died down, I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the silence. Martin, we need to talk. He looked up, surprise and annoyance flickering across his face. Clara, what are you doing here? I'm here to tell the truth, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I held up the evidence I'd gathered, the photos, the letters, the financial statements. You've been lying to everyone, Martin. About your affair, about the money, about everything. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as I laid out the evidence. Martin's face paled, and he took a step back, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "This is ridiculous," he said, his voice shaking. "You're making a scene, Clara." "No, Martin," I replied, my voice rising. "You made this scene the moment you decided to betray me and our family. You've been living a lie, and it's time everyone knows the truth." The room fell silent, all eyes on Martin. He looked around, desperation and anger etched on his face. "You don't understand," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. "I had no choice." "There's always a choice," I said, my voice cold. "And you chose to betray me." As I turned to leave, Kate by my side, I felt a surge of empowerment. I had done it. I had exposed him for what he was. But as we walked out of the office, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Gabriella. "Clara, we need to talk. It's urgent." My heart raced as I read the message. "Kate, we need to go to Gabriella's." "What's going on?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "I don't know, but it sounds serious," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. We arrived at Gabriella's house, and she opened the door with a look of desperation. "Clara, thank God you're here," she said, her voice trembling. "There's something you need to know." "What is it?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Martin's been planning something," she said, her eyes wide with fear. "He's been talking about taking drastic measures if things didn't go his way." "What do you mean?" I asked, a sense of dread settling in. "He mentioned something about the offshore accounts," she said, her voice shaking. "He said if he couldn't have the money, no one could." My blood ran cold. "We need to stop him," I said, my voice urgent. "He could do something reckless." We rushed back to the office, my mind racing with thoughts of what Martin might be planning. When we arrived, the building was in chaos. People were shouting, and security guards were rushing towards the elevators. "What's going on?" I asked one of the guards. "Mr. Baxter locked himself in his office," the guard replied, his face pale. "He's threatening to destroy everything." My heart pounded as I pushed my way through the crowd, Kate and Gabriella close behind. When we reached Martin's office, I could hear him shouting inside, his voice filled with anger and desperation. "Martin, open the door," I shouted, banging on the door. "This isn't the way to handle this." "Stay back, Clara," he shouted, his voice shaking. "I won't let you take everything from me." "Martin, please," I said, my voice breaking. "Think about what you're doing. This isn't just about you. It's about our family, our future." There was a long silence, and I held my breath, praying he would listen. Finally, the door creaked open, and Martin stood there, his face a mask of anguish. "I don't know what to do," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I've lost everything." "You haven't lost everything," I said, stepping forward. "But you need to stop this. It's not too late to make things right." As he looked at me, I saw the flicker of the man I once loved, buried beneath the layers of deceit and betrayal. This was the moment that would define our future, and I knew I had to reach him before it was too late. Martin stood in the doorway of his office, his face a mixture of despair and anger. The tension in the air was palpable, and I knew that this moment would define the rest of our lives. I took a step forward, my heart pounding. "Martin, you need to stop this," I pleaded, my voice steady but urgent. "This isn't just about you. Think about our children, our family." He shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. "I've ruined everything, Clara. I don't know how to fix it. You can start by letting go of this madness," I said, reaching out to him. "We can figure this out, but you need to stop." He looked at me, the anguish in his eyes almost too much to bear. Slowly, he stepped aside, allowing me to enter the office. The room was in disarray, papers strewn everywhere, and his computer screen flashing ominously. "What were you planning to do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I was going to transfer everything to the offshore account," he admitted, his voice hollow. "I thought if I couldn't have it, no one could." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "It's not too late, Martin. We can still fix this." Just then, Kate and Gabriella entered the room, their faces filled with concern. Gabriella looked at Martin, her eyes pleading. "Martin, please. Listen to Clara. This isn't the way." He looked at her, his expression softening for a moment before hardening again. "You don't understand. I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my family." "You haven't lost everything," Kate said, stepping forward. "But you will if you don't stop this now." Martin's shoulders slumped, and he sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "What have I done?" I knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've made mistakes, Martin, but we can still fix this. We need to work together." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm so sorry, Clara. I never meant for it to go this far." "I know," I said softly, "but now we need to make things right." Together, we began to undo the damage. Martin showed me how to reverse the transfers he had initiated, and with Gabriella's help, we contacted the bank to secure our accounts. It was a painstaking process, but slowly we began to regain control. As we worked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of bittersweet relief. This was the man I had fallen in love with, buried beneath layers of deceit and betrayal. But the road to forgiveness was long, and I wasn't sure if we could ever fully repair the damage. Hours later, we finally finished securing the accounts. Martin looked exhausted, his face lined with worry and regret. "What now?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Now we face the consequences," I said, my voice firm. "We'll deal with the fallout together, but you need to take responsibility for what you've done." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I will, Clara. I promise." As we left the office, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was ending, but a new one was beginning. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had the strength to face it. Back at home, I sat down with Kate and Gabriella, the weight of the day settling heavily on my shoulders. "Thank you," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you." "We're here for you, Clara," Kate said, squeezing my hand. "No matter what." Gabriella nodded, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm so sorry for everything, Clara. I never meant to cause this much pain." "I know," I said softly, "but now we need to move forward." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my lawyer. "Clara, we need to meet. There are new developments regarding the divorce proceedings." My heart sank. I had hoped that securing the accounts would be the end of the crisis, but it seemed there was more to come. "I need to go," I said, standing up. "There's still more to deal with." As I left the house, I felt a renewed sense of determination. This wasn't over, but I was ready to face whatever came next. Everything was at stake, but I knew I had the strength to see it through to the end.
Lauren is the reason I am the person I am today. I was ready to give the beaming Lauren another thank you when I noticed someone. I got up and ran without saying a word. I couldn't risk losing them. I shoved my way through the mob, relying on the color of their clothes, and put my hand on their shoulder. Tristan is my name, 30 years old. What? Another miss today. I'm currently having lunch with Lauren, the woman I'm in a romantic relationship with, at a cafe. I never saw myself working in this field outside of work, but now that I think about it, it seems like my genuine calling. I feel satisfaction in my work every day. When I was still a college student, I got to know Lauren 8 years ago. I had a part-time job at a pub at the time. I found the work rewarding and loved serving customers. But I had one specific difficulty. Greetings. How many people are in your group today? One customer came in once a month, and I greeted them just like I would any other visitor. Regular Nathan, however, frowned in disapproval. My manager Tyler emerged from behind him, grinning broadly. "Oh, Nathan. Thank you as always for coming. This kid never remembers my face, does he?" Nathan said, still frowning, and let Tyler guide him to his chair. "Young people these days," Tyler said in an attempt to reassure Nathan. You are aware of the situation. Not like I want my face to be remembered, though, said Nathan, half pouting, and then he vanished into the back. Have I made a mistake again? It's challenging to strike this equilibrium. I recognized Nathan's face, of course. Since his initial visit, I had recalled it. He had already been here 10 times today. However, many would find it disturbing if I demonstrated that I remembered such things. The fact is, I possess a unique talent. In primary school, I became aware of it for the first time. I never forget a face once I see it. It's called super recognition, apparently. At a family funeral, I recognized relatives I had only met once, something I used to take for granted. And I remembered all their faces at a wedding later. Everyone was ecstatic, referring to me as a genius, and in awe. I became aware for the first time that my skill wasn't typical when I saw their shocked looks. However, I realized that remembering things was a positive thing because everyone was grinning. I also didn't conceal my skills. But as I got older, a growing number of individuals began to respond negatively to it. Ah, how do you remember that? Wait, have we even met before? That's kind of creepy. After a certain incident, I eventually began to conceal my skill. Even concealing it was difficult. I'd get suspicious looks from folks like Nathan if I acted like I didn't remember at all. How many encounters must a person have before they can recall a person's face? Even as a college student, I was still unable to find that equilibrium. The store's bell rang again as I stood there, a little confused. Welcome. I shouted as I turned to face the new customer. But the moment I saw the woman's face, a bright smile spread across mine. Oh, you helped me with my lost item 2 years ago. At my words, the woman gave me a puzzled look. 2 years ago, I had lost a small coin pouch. It wasn't anything special, and there wasn't much money inside, but it was a gift from my father when I started university, so I treasured it. Even after retracing my steps 3 times, I couldn't find it, so I rushed the police for help. She was the officer who had kindly assisted me back then. When I mentioned that it was a gift from my father, her eyes widened, and she listened carefully to my story. In the end, I found the coin pouch at the bottom of my tote bag. But when I went back to report it, she smiled and said, "I'm glad you found it. Make sure to take good care of it," without a hint of annoyance. Anyone would remember someone who had been that helpful and kind, even if we had only spoken for a total of 30 minutes. At least, that's what I thought. But she clearly didn't see it that way. When I was on duty at the police station, a lost item, 2 years ago. I'm in plain clothes today, and my hair is down. How do you even remember that? She asked, her expression suspicious. Panicked, I quickly blurted out, "Oh, sorry. It was just a meaningful memory for me. It left an impression." She still had a frown on her face, but after a short hum, she let it go and moved on. Later, I was assigned to her table and served her food and drinks each time she ordered. But the entire time, I felt like she was watching me with sharp, probing eyes. It made me uncomfortable. A few days later, as we were preparing for opening, 2 police officers walked into the restaurant. One of them was in uniform with her hair tied up. It was her. "We'd like to ask for your cooperation in checking this flyer." It was one of those wanted posters you often see around town, full of mugshots of criminals. A sharp sting pricked at my chest. Tyler scratched his head as he took the flyer from her. She then turned her gaze directly to me. "Especially you. You seem to have a knack for remembering faces. I'd really appreciate your help." Was it detective's intuition? She hit the mark so precisely that I froze. "Oh, well." As I stammered, Tyler laughed, saying I couldn't even remember the faces of our regular customers. But the female officer acted as if she hadn't heard him and just kept staring at me. I couldn't bear that gaze and quickly continued speaking. "Well, it's something from a long time ago, but I hesitated before finally beginning to share my childhood trauma. I was in third grade when I first started feeling suffocated by my ability to remember faces. One day at the park, where I often played, I saw a familiar face. It was a man whose face had been on a wanted poster at the police station. My heart pounding, I ran to tell my mother. My mother was surprised and went to the park to check, but she seemed skeptical about whether the man was really a wanted criminal. Although he had aged, gained some wrinkles, and become slightly heavier, I was certain. When I said so, my mother believed me and called the police. Not long after, officers arrived and questioned the man. Eventually, he gave in and hung his head. From a distance, my mother and I watched. Then, one of the officers approached us. They thanked me for helping catch a fugitive, and in my excitement, I proudly boasted that I had remembered his face from the wanted poster, ignoring my mother's attempts to stop me. The moment I said it, the man, who had been quietly accepting his fate, suddenly lifted his head and glared at me with intense fury. If it weren't for you, I could have kept living peacefully in this town. I have a small kid and a wife, you know. It's not just me you've ruined, my wife and child's lives too. Do you even understand what you've done? He shouted, his voice filled with rage. Of course, the officers restrained him, and the people around me reassured me that his words were nonsense. But from that moment on, I started hiding my ability because my power had stolen that man's happiness, and not just his, but the happiness of those around him too. Those words festered in my heart like a dark shadow. Finishing my story, I hesitantly looked at the female officer. So, that's why I'm not really good with this kind of thing, I said. Then her voice trembled as she replied, "What a selfish man." I froze. He destroyed someone else's happiness, and yet he thinks his happiness was ruined. I'm speechless. The one who made his wife and child suffer was him, the man who committed a crime and still chose to have a family. And on top of that, he had the audacity to force his selfish complaints onto a little kid. Unforgivable. The female officer's words struck deep within me. As a child, the adults around me reassured me, saying, "That man committed a crime so serious he was on a wanted list. It's good that he was caught. You did the right thing." But in my heart, I could never shake off the thought of his wife and child, who had done nothing wrong. If that man had never been caught, those two wouldn't have suffered. I was the one who made them suffer by opening my mouth. That's what I had always believed. But this woman declared with absolute certainty that he was the one who brought misfortune upon his family. As if a fog was lifting from my mind, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Then the female officer held up the flyer and spoke to me with conviction. Every person on this list has committed a crime, leaving many people suffering, and yet they still haven't faced justice. What you did wasn't unnecessary. Please, use your ability to help even one more person find justice. Her unwavering gaze made me nod instinctively. She handed a business card, not just to Tyler, but to me as well. If you ever spot any of them, no matter if I'm off duty or after hours, call me at this number. The name printed on the card was Lauren Smith. Lauren. I murmured, her name as if confirming something important to myself. A few days later, I found myself dialing Lauren's number. One of the wanted criminals from the fight had walked into the bar. It was his first time there. He wore a mask and pulled his cap low over his eyes, silently holding up one finger to indicate he was alone. The moment I saw his face, I froze, certain that he was the same person as the one on the flyer. I guided him to a seat at the counter, where I could see his face from the kitchen. Then I quickly informed Tyler and stepped into the back to call Lauren. She answered immediately. Not long after, she arrived at the bar. From the kitchen, she confirmed his face. When we called out to him, the man showed a brief sign of trying to escape, but Lauren secured him just a moment faster. He struggled, but it was futile. Soon enough, he was led away in a police car. His back carried a sense of melancholy, but at the same time, a chill ran down my spine. Dangerous criminals were walking among us, hiding in plain sight, not lurking in the shadows, not trying to be invisible, just existing casually. And if one of them had decided to bare their fangs, I was close enough that they could have taken my life in an instant. Cold sweat ran down my back. A gentle but firm hand rested on my shoulder. "Hey, have you ever considered becoming a police officer?" I turned to her, dumbfounded. "You have a gift, don't you?" Her words made me stiffen. "You don't just have a slightly good memory for faces, do you? You recognize me even though I was off duty and look completely different from 2 years ago. You also identified the wanted criminal today, even though his face wasn't exactly like the one in the flyer. You remember every face you've ever seen, even if it was just in passing. Am I right?" She had completely seen through me. I had no choice but to admit it. Yes, that's right. I was honestly impressed. So this is what makes a good cop. Don't be ashamed of your ability. Use it to help bring justice to those criminals still lurking in this town. Becoming a police officer had never once crossed my mind, but Lauren's serious gaze and her words made me realize that my true calling was to be a police officer. Still, there was one problem. I'm kind of dumb, so I don't think I can pass the exam at my pathetic excuse. Lauren's eyes widened, then she glared at me. "I'll help you study." "No, we're going to study together, right?" Her unwavering gaze left me with no choice but to nod. From that moment on, my life became a whirlwind of university classes, part-time work, and police exam prep. Since Lauren was busy, I was given a study guide for the exam and spent every day solving problems from it. When she had time, she helped me with the parts I didn't understand. Sometimes, I even went to her apartment. The first time I entered, I was nervous, but I was just a university student and Lauren was 28. She didn't see me as a man, just as a student she was tutoring. So, she let me in without hesitation. Her apartment was neat, with very few belongings, and had a pleasant scent. The room was primarily white, creating a calm and orderly atmosphere. But amidst that, there was one thing that felt out of place: a slightly worn-out family photo. As I stared at it, Lauren brought me tea and chuckled. "That's the last family photo we ever took." I looked at it more closely. The young girl in the picture, likely Lauren, was still a toddler. "My dad got caught up in a crime while we were out shopping as a family," she explained. "A woman, someone he didn't even know, suddenly attacked him with a knife in a frenzy. He managed to subdue her, but after that, he developed a severe trauma toward women. Unfortunately, that included my mother and me. He couldn't be around us anymore, so they divorced for his sake. At first, he still kept in touch, but eventually, he disappeared. We don't know where he is now. That photo is the last memory I have of my happy family." A lump formed in my throat. In the picture, Lauren was smiling brightly, and her parents, on either side of her, had the same carefree, joyful expressions. To think that all of it shattered in a single moment. I remained silent, unable to find the right words. Lauren continued. "Even a crime, when no one gets physically hurt, can still ruin someone's life. That's why I became a cop. A crime-free society might be impossible, but if I can stop even one more crime from happening..." Her words ignited something in me. From that moment on, I threw myself into studying, and in the end, I passed a civil service exam and officially became a police officer. Thanks to Lauren's recommendation and my interview, my ability as a super recognizer was acknowledged. I was assigned to the Detective Division's Fugitive Investigation Unit. I was assigned to nationwide fugitive tracking and investigations, utilizing my abilities to conduct facial recognition patrols. Facial recognition patrols involve memorizing photos of wanted criminals, going out into the city to search for them, and identifying and arresting them. It was the perfect job for me, a calling. From high-profile fugitives featured on posters to petty thieves who had gone into hiding, my mind stored an immense database of faces. Since my assignment 7 years ago, I've played a role in over 200 captures. Meanwhile, Lauren became a full-fledged detective working in the field. Up until now, I had little connection with Lauren, but this time, she had received numerous eyewitness reports about the suspect she was tracking. Since those reports were scattered across different locations, she asked me to help conduct a facial recognition patrol to search each area thoroughly. That's how we ended up working together this time. And now, we were taking a lunch break at a cafe. Even while sitting here, my eyes scanned the crowd outside, memorizing faces, analyzing movements. Lauren sighed. You know you can take a break, even for just lunch. You'll burn yourself out. I kept my gaze outside and replied, I can't relax. What if the suspect passes by while I'm looking away? She let out another deep sigh. Maybe I suggested the wrong career for you. You can never really rest, can you? I quickly shook my head. Not at all. This is my calling. I can't thank you enough for leading me to it. Just as I was about to express my gratitude further, my eyes locked onto someone outside the cafe. Without a word, I stood up, threw some cash on the table, and rushed out. I couldn't lose them. Weaving through the crowd, keeping my eyes on the color of their clothing, I reached out and grabbed their shoulder. Lauren, startled by my sudden movement, quickly caught up. Within a minute, you found him, she asked, breathless. The older man I had grabbed looked confused. Then Lauren's expression turned to one of pure bewilderment. Wait, what? No, this isn't him. The suspect we're after is a man in his 30s. This guy is. I cut her off. He's your father. Panting slightly, I forced out the words. Behind me. Lauren's shocked voice rang out. The elderly man furrowed his brows. Your father. You showed me his picture once. Remember. As Lauren remained speechless, the man muttered softly, Lauren. Lauren, could it really be? I added an explanation to the man, who seemed unable to process his thoughts. You're the father who was separated from Lauren when she was a child, right? The moment I said it, tears welled up in the man's eyes. It's really Lauren, my daughter. No, it can't be. That's impossible. Since this wasn't the best place to continue, we moved to a nearby park. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the empty playground. I bought drinks and handed them to the two of them. There's no doubt, I nodded deeply. No doubt at all. At my confirmation, Lauren hesitantly reached out and took the man's hand. Dad. The man, too, grasped her hand in return. It was their first reunion in 30 years. Wanting to give them privacy, I sat on a bench at the edge of the park, closing my eyes to rest. But the moment my peripheral vision caught sight of a hunched figure, I sprang into action. What the hell is going on today? It was the suspect Lauren had been chasing. By sheer coincidence or fate, I had found two of the people we had been searching for in a single day. After we arrested the suspect and got his name, he slumped over in defeat. At that moment, I felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. Later that evening, as I stepped outside after wrapping up the case, I saw Lauren waiting for me. Got a minute? I nodded and walked beside her. A gentle, pleasant scent drifted in the air. Lauren and I started walking side by side. I don't even know how to thank you for today. Lauren broke the silence, and I smiled. This was definitely the most intense day of my life. Lauren chuckled softly. Same here. I never imagined I'd get to see my dad again. Her voice was laced with deep emotion, and I noticed a faint shimmer in her eyes. After I had left them alone, she and her father had spent hours filling in the 30-year gap. She had asked him why he had disappeared. His answer: he had been too ashamed to face them. Looking back on that day, the day of the attack, He knew full well that the frenzied woman who had lunged at him wasn't his wife or daughter. And yet, his trauma had made him fear all women, including them. He had blamed himself relentlessly for that. When his wife asked for a divorce, he accepted it as inevitable. But Lauren had counted his assumption. My mother didn't get divorced for that reason. She simply wanted to free her father from his suffering. The suffering caused by having them, by having a woman by his side. There was no lie or hidden motive in her words. She only wanted her terrified father to live in peace. And if time passed and his trauma healed, at that point, she hoped to reunite with him. But he had misinterpreted that kindness as a polite lie. He had convinced himself that no one could possibly want to stay with someone like him, so he had chosen to vanish. Hearing their story, I, an outsider, couldn't hold back my own tears. Today I called Mom, and she was so happy. It looks like we'll be able to meet as a family soon. Lauren's smile at that moment was radiant. And on top of that, you caught the suspect for me. Seriously, you're amazing. I'm really glad I recruited you. With a beaming smile, Lauren spoke, and I forced a smile in return. I'm just glad I could help you. Even as I said it, my eyes instinctively drifted to the bustling crowd. It was an occupational habit. There could be a wanted criminal among them, one whose face I had stored away in my memory. Noticing my behavior, Lauren let out a small sigh. Want to come over? I blinked in surprise at her sudden invitation. You don't seem like you can relax at the park or at a restaurant, but at my place, there's no one around. Back when I was a university student, she had let me into her apartment to study, but this was a completely different situation. Even now, was I still just a safe little brother figure who could be invited in without a second thought? Feeling a little deflated, I remained silent. That's when Lauren leaned in and peered at me. I want to thank you, but is that a problem? That confirmed it. She definitely didn't see me as a man. She wasn't wary of me at all. Fine, I had found Lauren's father. I had caught the fugitive she was after. On a day full of miracles, why not add one more? Are you sure about this? I asked, keeping my voice even. Lauren smiled. Of course. I'll cook something for you. What do you want? Her carefree smile nearly broke me, but I held firm. Are you sure you're inviting a man who's in love with you into your apartment so easily? Lauren widened her eyes at my unexpected move. What a shock. Her gaze made me pump my fist internally. I like you, Lauren, and I'll be walking into your apartment with completely impure intentions. Are you really okay with that? Lauren's face turned bright red. You're kidding, right? I'm 6 years older than you. I'm just an old woman. Her voice grew smaller and smaller. I'm not kidding, and I'm not teasing you. I've liked you ever since you invited me to become a cop. Her eyes widened even further. Since that long ago, I nodded. I was too much of a coward. I didn't want to ruin what we had, so I just kept my feelings buried. But today, you invited me in so nonchalantly that I just... Lauren's lips curled up slightly. Ah, so you were sulking. Hearing that, I turned bright red. Even though I had taken the lead by surprise, I was overtaken so easily. That's exactly how it felt. Then let's go to my place. I frowned. That's what I mean. You should at least be a little cautious. Before I could finish, Lauren held up a finger in front of my lips. You're going to take care of me, aren't you, Tristan? Her gentle, trusting gaze made my breath hitch. So I won't be cautious, and I won't regret it. Now, let's go. I pursed my lips. Whatever happens, don't blame me for it. I spoke in a joking tone, and Lauren simply smiled. That smile. It was like that of a goddess. 2 years have passed since that day, and now Lauren and I are married. Considering Lauren's age, I wanted to get married as soon as possible, but she hesitated, fearing that if we rushed into it, I might regret it later. Frustrated by her indecision, I dragged her to a jewelry store. As she hesitated, I warned her, "If you can't decide, I'll just pick one myself." Panicked, she finally chose an engagement ring. The moment we stepped out of the store, I immediately opened the box and proposed. Lauren furrowed her brows and whispered, "Don't blame me for what happens." It sounded oddly familiar. Before I could place it, she grinned mischievously. "Remember you said those exact words 2 years ago when I invited you to my place?" I traced back my memories. Did I say, "Don't blame me for what happens to the unsuspecting Lord Lauren"? You remember that well? I gave a wry smile. Lauren laughed. It was a pretty unforgettable line. Her words sent a jolt through my chest. Meanwhile, Lauren's parents were married. To make up for the lost time, the three of them now meet regularly. Sometimes, I've invited two. Seeing them together, truly happy, makes me think what a waste those years apart were. But Lauren, ever the optimist, simply smiles and says that time apart only made our bond stronger. I can only imagine how painful it must have been, and yet she transformed that pain into a stepping stone toward happiness. That's the kind of strong, kind woman she is. On the shelf, there still stands the old, worn-out family photo of Lauren with her parents. But beside it now sits a new photo. One of the three of them reunited as a family after 30 years. Every time I glance at that frame, a smile tugs at my lips. And next to that, there's another photo, one of Lauren, her parents, me, and my parents. The six of us, all smiling together. I want to keep adding to this collection, more and more pictures of happiness. Ah, the baby just kicked. At Lauren's sudden exclamation, I instantly placed my hand on her belly. She's now 7 months pregnant. For a while now, she's been feeling kicks, but every time I put my hand on her stomach, the baby mysteriously stops moving. Ah! I gasped and looked up at Lauren. She smiled softly. Finally, they got to say hello to Daddy. She gently spoke to her belly in a warm, loving voice. I turned my gaze back to the shelf, to the picture frames. In just a few months, we'll be adding one more. Let's keep adding more and more photo frames from now on as a symbol of happiness. What's a high school graduate kid doing here? As he talked, the man scowled, and I naturally recoiled. His incredibly impolite demeanor infuriated me. I'm here too. I was ready to explain when the unthinkable occurred. Henry is my name. I work as a software engineer and am 22 years old. When I was a college student, my parents died in a vehicle accident. I relocated a little further away to my grandmother's home. However, I chose to leave college and begin working because I could no longer rely on my old grandma. Greg Williams, the CEO of the business where my dad had spent many years working, was the person I contacted. Since both of my parents worked, I occasionally stopped by my dad's office, which was close to my childhood home, when I needed something. When my dad was a student, Greg had been a senior. Every time I visited, he would give me some candy and a warm smile, as he had known me since birth. He even contacted me to see how I was doing after my parents died and instructed me to get in touch with him if I ever needed anything. Although I felt humiliated to confess it, I had considered going back to school while living with my grandma. Additionally, the commute had grown considerably, so I concluded that the tuition was no longer worthwhile. I therefore dropped out of school. My teachers and friends tried to talk me out of leaving the information technology program because I had consistently received very high grades. However, I wanted to keep my hands off of my parents' fortune as much as possible since I knew I would eventually have to take care of my grandma. With that in mind, I came to the conclusion that I had to make a life for myself. I reached out to Greg and told him what I was thinking. I could be open with my grandma about my concerns, but I didn't want to bother her. He consoled me when I even started crying throughout the call. His business had expanded considerably by the time I contacted him, and it even had subsidiary businesses. Greg recommended that I try working at one of those subsidiaries on a part-time basis. Academic credentials were not really important to the organization, but it was unusual for someone my age to work there. He made an exception and gave me a part-time position with the potential to advance to full-time work based on how well I performed. I had previously only worked part-time at eateries, but this position paid substantially more, and more significantly, I would be pursuing my lifelong passion of working in software engineering. I agreed right away. When I started working at the subsidiary, the department manager assigned as my mentor had once worked with my dad. I thought his face looked familiar, and I realized I'd seen him a few times when visiting my dad's office. Thanks to his mentorship, I went from handling simple tasks to working on actual software development. "Henry, you're doing a much better job than most new graduates looking to become software engineers." He was confident in my abilities and vouched for me. Within a year, I was promoted to a contract employee, and now I work as a full-time employee. This year, at 22 years old, I received great news from my manager. "Henry, you've been transferred to the main office." He told me this, and I nodded enthusiastically. I had been involved in major projects at the subsidiary and achieved good results. The transfer came because of those accomplishments. At 22, I was also the youngest employee in the main office. I even received a call from Greg himself. He wanted me to join a project he was launching. I knew my schedule would get much busier, but I found my work meaningful and wanted to support Greg, who had helped me so much. Before starting at the main office, I was asked to come in for a meeting. When I arrived at the main office and asked the receptionist, she told me that Greg's meeting was running late and that he'd be back soon. She contacted him and asked me to wait in the CEO's office. Following her instructions, I took the elevator to the 3rd floor, where I encountered a man carrying documents. "Good morning." I greeted him and started heading toward the CEO's office at the end of the hallway as directed. But the man called out to me in a stern voice, "Hey, take this." Without giving me a chance to respond, he shoved the documents into my arms, so I had no choice but to follow him. When we arrived at a conference room that was being prepped for a meeting, he said, "Set them up there." Then he casually sipped his coffee. Clearly, he had mistaken me for someone else. Well, I began to explain, but was cut off. New hires should just keep quiet and listen to what I say. I'm an elite on the fast track to promotion. You can't go wrong following me. He proudly bragged about being a department head and having graduated from a prestigious university. It seemed he thought I was a new recruit. At first, I assumed he was just competent at his job, but his personality was awful. "So, where did you go to college?" he asked me with an arrogant tone. I dropped out of college. I began to explain, but he interrupted me again. "Again? Dropped out? So you're just a high school graduate?" Before I could continue, he bombarded me with more questions. "What's a high school graduate doing in our company? Who are you? You're not one of our new hires, are you?" He spoke rapidly, frowning the entire time. Even though his intensity was overwhelming, I managed to say, "I've been transferred here from a subsidiary, and I'm meeting with our CEO, Greg." But once again, he cut me off. "Oh, it's you." The man glared at me menacingly. "You're part of that project team. The CEO mentioned bringing someone over from the subsidiary, and you're just a high school graduate. Nobody told me they were adding an incompetent kid to the team. Let me make one thing clear. The project leader is me." His words made my blood boil. But this person was supposed to be my superior. I clenched my fists and swallowed my anger. I wanted to push back, but I didn't know how to respond in moments like this. Seeing my hesitation, the department head chuckled through his nose. "I bet you pulled some strings. A high school grad getting hired here and even getting transferred to the main office? Who brought you? Useless kids like you never last. You better be ready to get kicked off this project." I needed to say something. Well, I started to speak, but he grabbed his coffee and walked toward me. Don't talk back to me. I'm an absolute authority. If you get removed from this project, you're heading straight back to that little subsidiary. Not knowing how to respond, I blurted out without thinking. Oh, okay. The department head glared at me, and in the next moment, he poured the coffee over my head. Thankfully, the coffee had cooled, so it wasn't hot. But I was too stunned by his actions to even react. The bitter smell of coffee wafted through the air, and droplets hit the floor. The department head looked at the mess, pointed at me, and laughed. You don't need to attend the meeting. Having a useless high school grad like you around is a waste of time. The meeting starts soon, so clean this up and get out of here. With that, he left the conference room. I was so humiliated that I couldn't move. A few moments later, the conference room door opened, snapping me out of my daze. Shoot, I need to clean this up. Just as I thought that, I heard a familiar voice. Henry, there you are. It was Greg. He looked at me and asked, "What happened here?" I hesitated but finally said, "I think I was mistaken for a new hire and got roped into helping with the meeting setup." Greg furrowed his brow. I knew that wasn't what he was really asking. As for the coffee, it was a bit of a mishap. I forced a smile as I answered. Greg immediately pulled out his phone and made a call. Within moments, a man hurried over and handed me a towel. He seemed to be Greg's assistant. I thanked him, took the towel, and finally wiped my face and hat. Greg led me to his office. He directed me to the washroom, where I was able to wash my face and hair. The lingering coffee smell finally disappeared. The assistant even brought me a change of clothes, which I gratefully accepted. I felt bad and kept my head down the whole time. Seeing that, Greg chuckled. "You're just like your dad in that way." It was true. My dad had always been humble, and even Greg remembered him that way. Your dad was a brilliant engineer. I'm sure you've inherited his talent. Hearing him speak so highly of my dad made me genuinely happy, since he was the reason I pursued this career in the first place. The next day, I reported to the main office. During the morning assembly, Greg announced that he would introduce me in front of the assembled employees. He said, "Let me introduce my right-hand man." Standing directly in front of me was the same department head from yesterday. You're the guy from yesterday." The department head's eyes widened in disbelief. He turned to Greg and asked, "What do you mean by your right-hand man?" Greg, calm as ever, replied, "Henry will be my right-hand man. In other words, the project leader will be Henry." "What?" the department head shouted. Yesterday, he had told me he was the project leader. I had believed that too. But now, I was the leader. Even during yesterday's meeting with Greg, he hadn't mentioned this, so I was just as shocked. Greg smiled warmly as he spoke. "I had a meeting with Henry yesterday. Despite his young age, he has valuable professional experience and a solid way of thinking. His reputation at the subsidiary is excellent, so I decided to put him in charge as the leader." The department head's voice trembled. "But I'm supposed to be the leader." Greg chuckled and replied, "There's no way you're the leader. You lack the necessary knowledge." At that, several people around us couldn't hold back their laughter. It was clear from their reactions that the department head wasn't well liked. His face turned pale. Once the morning assembly ended, Greg called both the department head and me into his office. The department head shot me a glare and muttered under his breath, "Why someone like you?" Greg spoke to the department head in a stern tone. "Tell me everything that happened yesterday." The department head feigned ignorance and said, "What are you talking about?" But Greg wasn't backing down. "You met with Henry yesterday, didn't you?" The department head seemed to realize he couldn't wriggle his way out and lied instead. "Yes, I dropped some documents, and he kindly picked them up. He said he wanted to help. so I just had him assist with the meeting setup. At that moment, he glared at me. It was clear he wanted me to keep my mouth shut. However, before I could say anything, Greg spoke. "Henry didn't tell me anything, but you do know there are security cameras in that conference room, right?" The department head's eyes widened in shock, and his face instantly turned pale. "I know everything you did. Your punishment will be decided later, but you should prepare to lose your position as department head." When Greg said that, the department head let out a desperate shout. "No. I just went a little too far yesterday. I promise I'll make this project a success." Greg let out a sigh. At that point, I finally spoke up. "Are you saying it's just fooling around when you pour coffee on someone? I've never seen anyone do that before. Is that kind of behavior normal at this company? If it is, then I won't say anything. And if that really is the norm, does that mean it's fine if I pour coffee on the department head as a joke too?" I picked up the cup of coffee that the assistant had brought in, and the department head shook his head furiously, his face pale. "No, I'm sorry." He repeated it over and over. I set the cup back down on the table. Inside, yesterday, Greg explained the details of the project to me. He said I was the only one who could handle it. Sure, maybe someone like you with a prestigious college degree seems more qualified than someone like me, a high school graduate. Greg listened carefully to everything I said. The department head stared at me with his face still as pale as ever. "But everyone has their strengths, right? I may be a high school graduate for personal reasons, but I've earned several system-related certifications and have relevant experience. This project is incredibly challenging without the proper qualifications. Do you have any certifications?" The department head averted his gaze. I understood his answer. "I can't hand over leadership of this project to someone unqualified. Besides, from what I saw at the morning assembly, it was clear that your coworkers don't trust you. Honestly, we can't entrust a project close to the CEO's heart to someone like that." As I spoke, the department head turned red and started shouting. "You've got no right to say that to me." I knew that it wasn't something I should have said, but I wanted to make this project a success for Greg no matter what. To achieve that, I had to remove someone like the department head from the equation. The department head seemed to lose his composure completely, even in front of the CEO, and continued mocking me. "Is this revenge over some spilled coffee? Such a childish move. You're just a lowly high school graduate. You brag about having certifications, but anyone can get those if they study a bit." At that, Greg interjected. "You're absolutely right." I blinked in surprise, but his next words made perfect sense. Henry studied incredibly hard to earn those certifications, and he did it in record time. If anyone can earn them, then I expect you to obtain these certifications within the next 2 months. Greg slammed a brochure with the certification details onto the table. They were known to be some of the toughest certifications in the field. It was the most challenging certification I had ever earned. But I only had about 2 months to study because I had to get several others as well. Greg remembered that. "Of course, that's no problem," the department head muttered, caught off guard. Greg decided to hold off on the department head's punishment, but things soon took a turn. A few days later, the department head went crying to Greg, saying he couldn't understand the certification materials at all. Disappointed, Greg told him to apologize to me, but the department head stubbornly refused. That attitude pushed me over the edge. "What is your problem?" Both Greg and the department head were stunned by my outburst, but I didn't care. "You ordered me around the moment we met, mocked me for being a high school graduate, and even poured coffee on me. Do you realize I could sue you for defamation and assault? And you better pay for my dry cleaning bill too." I stepped closer to the bewildered department head. If a high school graduate like me can earn those certifications, anyone should be able to, right? So why is it that you, after saying all that, have no idea what you're doing? I let out a mocking laugh. "Maybe you shouldn't make bold claims if you can't back them up. People who talk big but lack the skills to deliver are pathetic. The department head's eyes welled up with tears, seemingly scared of me. Finally, in a pitiful voice, he broke down crying. "Why do I have to be humiliated like this by you?" Greg sighed deeply. "Henry is absolutely right. You need to reflect on your actions. You're being demoted starting next month, and your bonus will be cut." The department head pleaded with Greg. "But what about my mortgage?" Watching him grovel, I muttered, "You reap what you sow." Greg nodded in agreement. The former department head, now a regular employee, worked under the disapproving gaze of his colleagues to pay off his mortgage. Word spread quickly about how he had poured coffee on me and later broke down in tears when confronted. Some details were exaggerated, but his story became a source of amusement for the rest of the employees. His work environment grew uncomfortable, but that was his own doing. Although I gained a reputation as someone who could lose his temper, I grew closer to my colleagues through the project, and thankfully, the misunderstanding was cleared up. The project was going smoothly, and Greg told me, "Choosing you for this role was the right decision." I owe everything to Greg for giving me this opportunity. I'll keep paying him back in any way I can. You seem to have obtained employment after graduating from college, but after 6 months, you give up. This, the interviewer remarked, laughing through his nose. Nowadays, it's very easy for young people to abandon their professions. Although we want long-term employees, they frequently depart. They gripe about low income, the workload, their superiors, or their job. Anyone who spoke such things would not even be hired in our day and age, you know. I went home and talked to Mom and Dad's framed picture. The interview today also didn't go well. However, don't worry. I'll get a decent job. I swear. I looked through my phone's employment listings. Not at all. I had no idea this business was hiring. Well, there's nothing to lose. I'll submit an application. The day of the interview then arrived. I strapped on the watch my late father left me and put on his suit. I pondered about that watch. I'm sorry. Alex Carter is my name. My age is 22. Right now, I'm making every effort to locate employment. I got a job at a corporation after I graduated from college. I didn't stay long, though. It was a fairly well-known company, but I was often overworked and the overtime was terrible. But I didn't quit for that reason. Despite my hectic schedule, I found the work to be fulfilling. My boss was the true problem. Going to work every day became a major strain, and we didn't get along. Within the organization, he was known as a newbie crusher. One by one, my fellow new hires continued to leave. I made an effort to persevere as long as I could, but by the 6-month point, I had had enough. I repeatedly brought it up with higher management, but they informed me that because he had worked for the company for so long, they couldn't fire him. There was never any change. So I gave up. I'm now putting a lot of effort into getting a job at a new company. However, it appears that no employer wants to recruit someone who quit their first job after only 6 months. The identical question is asked in every interview. Why did you quit after just 6 months? My boss hounded me. I could never say something like that in an interview. Blaming your former employer for your resignation is strictly prohibited. Rather, I would conceal it by claiming things like, I wanted to improve my skills, or I didn't get along well with the company. However, the interviewer was never satisfied with such responses. A quitter who, after 6 months, gave up. They only viewed me as that. Despite attending 4 interviews, I received no offers. I would be in big trouble if things continued in this manner. There were no parents I could trust. My dad died last year of the same sickness that killed my mother when I was a child. I have nothing to return to. Our previous flat was inexpensive, and it was likely occupied by someone else by now. There was nowhere I could go back to. I had no one to turn to for support. That's why I had to find a new job as soon as possible. Thinking that way, I kept working part-time while hunting for job openings every day. One day, a job listing caught my eye. It was for the company I'd admired for years. No way. They're hiring. That company rarely ever posted job openings. Back in college, I checked multiple times to see if they were hiring. I even asked my professors and friends to keep an eye out, but no openings ever came up. And now, out of nowhere, there it was. They were hiring, and only 3 positions were available. Should I go for it? Even if it's a long shot? No. It's probably pointless, right? It's such a big company. Why would they hire someone who quit after 6 months? I let out a self-deprecating laugh and forced myself to stop looking at the listing before going to bed. But even as I tried to sleep, all I could think about was that job opening at the top company. I knew I didn't stand a chance. But it was my dream job, the one I always wanted. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to take a chance. That thought kept swirling in my mind. No, I need to stay focused on what's right in front of me. Today's interview is with Greenfield Corp. I've got to give it my all and land that offer. I arrived at the office building for my interview with a different company, wearing the same suit I used during my college job hunt. I walked into the building, nerves and all. I followed the receptionist's directions and stepped into the conference room. Let's get started. Please introduce yourself and share your highest level of education. Yes, my name is Alex Carter, and I graduated from Oak Ridge University. I gave my usual introduction, listing my education and sharing my personal pitch. I see you graduated college and started working at Bluefield Corp, but you left after just 6 months. The interviewer, an older man, let out a small snicker as he spoke, but I was already used to that kind of reaction. Honestly, I couldn't blame them. It was understandable. After briefly explaining why I left, I tried to emphasize my strengths. That's why I believe I can excel in sales by utilizing my strengths. I'm also pretty good with numbers, so... All right, that's enough. Sorry, young people today quit their jobs so easily. We want employees to stay long-term, but they leave in no time. They complain about disliking their work, their bosses, the workload, or low pay. You know, back in our day, anyone who said things like that wouldn't even be hired. We worked for the company. Unpaid overtime was just part of life. I think kids today are incredibly lucky. And yet, new hires keep quitting. The interviewer started telling me stories about his hardships. I sometimes came across people like this in interviews. They'd go on about how tough things were in their era and how things are much easier now. The unspoken implication was always the same. You're going to quit too, aren't you? Sure, it was my decision to leave my previous company. But I wanted them to look at more than just that. No matter how much I talked about my strengths or my ambitions, the moment I explained why I left, they'd sigh in disappointment. I knew it was inevitable, but it was still crushing. And maybe you should put a bit more effort into your appearance. Is it really that bad? It's not bad, but I guess you could say you look a little too modern. You've got the freshness, but maybe not enough humility. I see. I barely remembered what questions came after that, but I remember the frustration and sadness all too well. I went home and spoke to the framed photo of Mom and Dad. Today's interview didn't go well either. But don't worry, I'll land a great job for sure. As usual, I pulled out my phone and started looking for job listings. With so many online job boards, there were tons of listings from different companies. And there was the job posting from the top company I'd seen the other day. If I could work at a company like that, it'd be so rewarding. There was a reason I'd admired this company for so long. It was because my dad always praised them. That company is amazing. They started as a small business and grew so quickly. You've probably heard their name everywhere, right? I actually worked there for a while. It was such a great place to work. The employees were so relaxed and happy. Dad, I've heard that story dozens of times already. If it was such a great place, why'd you leave? It was a big company, and the pay must have been good too. Yeah, but I guess I found something more important than the company. What are you even talking about? That doesn't make sense. But yeah, I get it. It does sound like a fun place to work, especially with such great benefits. Oh really? Then you should totally apply. If you got a job there, I'd be so proud of you. Come on, Dad, they'd reject me during the application screening. But yeah, it would be amazing if I could work there. The most important thing is for you to work where you want to. And if you ever need anything, just tell me. I'll always have your back. Stop being so weird, Dad. Weird? It's not weird. All right then. Here comes Dad's hug attack. That's gross. Stop it. My dad laughed out loud. Thinking back, those were really fun times. After it was just me and Dad, things got tough sometimes, but I never felt lonely. Dad was always joking around like that, filling the house with laughter. But Dad's gone now. I've got to push through on my own. When I looked at the photo, it felt like Mom and Dad were smiling at me gently. Maybe I'll go grab some ice cream at the shop. I walked to the nearby store, bought some ice cream, and headed back home. As I looked up at the sky, a single shooting star streaked across. Whoa, a shooting star. This has to be a good sign. I quietly glanced down at my phone. Before I knew it, I had submitted my application to the dream company. The email stated that the results of the application screening would be sent within 3 business days. That's what it said. It's a long shot anyway, so why not, right? 3 days later, I received an email. With my heart pounding, I opened it. We'd like to invite you to proceed to the interview stage. Would any of the following dates work for you? The message read, No way. Seriously, I actually made it to the interview. I quickly replied to the email. The interview date was set. The night before, I was ironing my dress shirt. That reminded me of the comment from the last interview. They'd asked me if I didn't have a different suit to wear. Come on. It's not like I have a ton of suits to choose from. I opened my closet and carefully checked each outfit. Suits are expensive. I couldn't afford to own multiple sets. That's when one particular suit caught my eye. It was Dad's old suit. Why don't you wear this suit? You and I are about the same build, so it should fit you. But this suit is pretty old, isn't it? Don't most people wear something they bought specifically for job hunting? Oh, come on. It'll be like I'm wrapping you up and protecting you. Stop it. Now I really don't want to wear it. I'm getting a new one, just for me. Oh, really? That conversation felt like it happened just yesterday. Before I realized it, my hand had reached out toward that suit. Wearing this suit will feel like Dad is wrapping me up and protecting me, right? Oh, that reminds me. I still have Dad's watch. It's a little old-fashioned, but I might as well wear it too. I took out the watch that I kept safely stored away. Both the suit and the watch were keepsakes Dad had left behind. I never thought the day would come when I'd wear the suit to a job interview. I hung the suit on the hanger, placed the watch on the desk, and went to sleep. The next day, I slipped on Dad's suit, fastened his watch around my wrist, and left the house. My heart was pounding, but I kept running interview scenarios through my head. I practiced over and over so I'd be ready to answer any question that came my way. When I arrived at the interview venue, there were about 10 other people there. Everyone looked more experienced than me, and I felt myself shrink a little. Most of them seemed older and more confident, and I couldn't help but feel outmatched. They had probably built impressive careers before coming here. Just then, a man came over and spoke to me. Hey, how old are you? Me? I'm 22. I'm 25. Did you start working right after high school or something? No. I graduated from college, but left my first job not long after. The guy talking to me was also waiting for his interview. With a friendly smile, he kept the conversation going. Got it. So you quit pretty soon after starting? Yeah, that's how it went. Oh, sorry. I'm not judging you or anything. Did something bad happen? Well, yeah. My boss was pretty awful. All my peers left too. I know quitting after 6 months was on me, but that's made it tough to find another job. Yeah, I get that. You can't just blame your old boss during an interview, right? It's hard to know what to say in those situations. I feel you. Thanks. It really helps to hear that. I don't have many people I can talk to about it. Of course. Think of me as your big brother and feel free to talk to me about anything, he said with a joking grin. My nerves eased up, and before I knew it, I was smiling too. My name's Kevin Turner. We're rivals today, but nice to meet you. What's your name? I'm Alex Carter. Nice to meet you, Kevin. Though it's kind of funny, isn't it? We're here fighting for the same spot, but I'm not really into that cutthroat vibe. I tried talking to the others, but they didn't seem interested. Is that right? Well, I'm really glad you talked to me. It's way easier to go into an interview after having a chat with someone nice. I like you, man. After the interview, let's grab a bite to eat. No hard feelings either way, right? Yeah, sounds good. Kevin seemed like a really sociable guy, someone who could make friends easily. Even after just a short chat, it was clear he was a good person. He'd probably make a great salesman. I noticed a few of the others glancing our way, whispering to each other. They probably thought it was pointless to get chummy. I heard that voice. Well, I'm going to go practice for the interview. Let's both do our best. Yes, let's give it our all, Kevin. Before I knew it, it was time for the interview. I'll be conducting today's interview. Pleased to meet you. The interview will take place in the room next door. There will be other interviewers present, but I'll be the one asking most of the questions. I'll call out 2 names at a time. When your name is called, please proceed to the next room. After this explanation, the first pair of names was called. My heart pounded as I waited my turn, wondering when I'd be called. There were about 10 candidates. Only 3 would make it. It wasn't impossible. But as I looked around at everyone who seemed so capable, I started to lose confidence. Just then, Dad's watch caught my eye. That's right. Go big or go home, right? I've made it this far. No need to hold back. I'll say what I want and show them what I can do. Dad is watching over me. Mom is probably cheering me on too. I got this. I gently ran my fingers over the watch and murmured to myself. Another pair was called, then the next. Finally, it was my turn. Alex Carter and Kevin Turner, please come to the next room. Yes, looks like we're paired up. As your rival, I'm not holding back. Same here. Let's do our best. It felt a little awkward to be interviewed alongside someone I knew, but I didn't have time to dwell on that. This was my chance. I had to make the most of it. Kevin and I entered the room and sat down. Please start by introducing yourselves, sharing your educational background, and giving your personal pitch. Yes, Kevin gave a confident and articulate introduction. As expected, he was an excellent speaker. With his friendly smile, he highlighted his strengths perfectly. Listening to him, I silently hyped myself up. Follow his lead. If I spoke with hesitation after such a great pitch, I'd fade into the background. With full confidence, I delivered my own introduction and personal pitch. I thought I saw Kevin smile encouragingly from the seat beside me. After I finished, I noticed something strange. One of the interviewers was staring at me intently. Even when I wasn't speaking, he kept silently watching me. Does this suit not look right on me? Despite that distracting thought, the interview continued. There were a few unexpected questions, but I managed to answer all of them without any problems. Kevin was right there with me, listening too. How confidently Kevin answered made me feel like I didn't want to lose. Thanks to that, I felt like I gave the best interview of my life. When the interview was nearing its end, the man who had been silently watching me finally spoke up. "May I ask a question as well, Michael?" "Of course, please go ahead." It seemed unusual for the man called Michael to ask a question, and the other interviewers looked a bit confused. I tensed up, wondering what he was going to ask. "Sorry if this is unrelated, but where did you get that suit and watch? Did you buy them at a vintage store?" What? The sudden question made my mind go blank. Did he mean they looked old and worn out? Was he asking why I was wearing something so outdated? I hurried to explain. "No, I didn't buy these at a vintage store. They belonged to my late father. I'm wearing them today as a sort of good luck charm." Is there something wrong with them?" "I see. Your father has passed away." "Yes, he passed away from illness last year." I remembered that he once told me to wear this suit to my interviews, so I decided to wear it today. He said that wearing this suit would make me feel like he was protecting me. "By the way, why do you want to work at this company? There are plenty of other companies in the same field." "Why ours? I'd like to hear your reasons." "Yes, it's true there are many sales positions out there, but I've admired your company for years. My admiration stems from my late father's influence. My father would always praise your company over and over. He used to say they'd grown from a small business into something this great. He explained your company's history so many times, I practically had it memorized. So when I saw the job opening for this company I've admired since I was a kid, I knew I had to apply." "I see. Did you like your father?" "Yes, I was very proud of him." When I said that, Michael covered his eyes with his hand, and he let out a deep sigh. "Is everything all right, Michael?" "That watch. I had a feeling. Sorry, I have a son too. We had a falling out and haven't spoken since. I've always hoped he's doing well somewhere." "I see. Could I speak with you for a few minutes after this, Alex Carter?" "Yes, of course." At that moment, I suddenly remembered the name of the company president, Michael Carter. Could this man be the president himself? The company had never posted his photo anywhere, so I hadn't recognized him until now. And we shared the same last name, Carter. I had thought it was just a coincidence since it wasn't a particularly rare name. After a final question, the interview concluded successfully. But to my surprise, Kevin was wiping his nose and crying. He even answered the last question with a tearful voice. "Hey, what's with the tears? You scared me when you started crying during the interview. Your dad sounds like a great guy, so that suit and watch have such sentimental value. I'm weak when it comes to stories like that." Kevin's eyes were red, and he was sniffing as he spoke. Seeing that, I couldn't help but laugh. I've never seen someone cry during an interview. "Well, it's your fault for telling such a touching story out of nowhere. Everything was going smoothly until that point. Then my mind went completely blank because of you. It shows how genuine you are. And it's a good thing." "Oops, sorry. I switched to casual language." "It's fine. I don't mind." After a while, all the interviews ended, and we were dismissed. However, Michael asked me to stay behind. Kevin waited for me at a nearby cafe. In the quiet room, Michael looked at me intently with a serious expression. "Was your father's name Ryan Carter?" "Yes, that's right." Apologies for asking such a strange question during the interview. When I saw that suit and watch, I couldn't help myself. "So Ryan has passed away?" "Yes, he passed away last year due to illness." "And your mother? Does she live with you?" "My mother passed away from illness when I was very young." "I see. Let me tell you a little about your father. But before that, did he ever tell you anything about his parents, your grandparents?" "I was told they passed away when I was little." "I see. You might find this hard to believe, but I'm your grandfather. Ryan and I once worked together at this very company. This business has been passed down from my father, and I had intended for Ryan to take over after me. Then he told me he wanted to marry someone. He brought your mother to meet me. I couldn't accept it at the time. When he said he was my grandfather, I wasn't that surprised. I had a feeling from the interview that there might be something more to him. Plus, there was something about him that reminded me of Dad. That probably made it easier to believe. Why couldn't you accept it? I had arranged for him to marry someone else for the sake of the family's future. Well, it wasn't Ryan's decision, and it was entirely something I set up. I thought it was what was best for him, but then he brought home a woman I didn't know and declared, "I'm marrying her." I couldn't forgive him for that, and to be honest, I thought it was a blow to my reputation. Of course, it was entirely my fault for not listening to him. But back then, I truly believed I was doing what was best for him. Michael spoke of those times with a pained expression, his eyes narrowing as if lost in memory. The woman he brought home was frail and already pregnant. I learned I was furious when I found out that he had gotten another woman pregnant when I had already set up a match for him. In my anger, I kicked him out of the house. After that, we lost all contact. At first, I figured I'd still see him at work, but soon after, Ryan left the company. I never reached out to him, and he never contacted me either. I just kept hoping he was living well somewhere out there. I see. So, Michael, you really are my grandfather. But really, I'm just a man connected to you by blood. I haven't done anything deserving of the title grandfather. I can't believe my father went through something like that. But didn't he betray the woman he was supposed to marry? At the time, I thought so too, but apparently, he was upfront with her from the beginning. He told her he wasn't planning to marry her because he loved someone else. She didn't take him seriously and didn't seem too bothered by it. I see. Hearing the shocking revelations, my mind struggled to process everything. My grandfather was alive, and my dad was supposed to be the next president of this company. Did he really run away with my mom? My dad, who was always smiling and hard to read, I never imagined he was hiding such a secret. By the way, that suit and watch. That suit was something Ryan bought with his very first paycheck. He and I went shopping together, and he tried on a bunch of suits, saying, "No, not this one. No, not that one," before finally settling on it. It was quite a struggle. Ryan was a stubborn man. It took him over 3 days just to pick a suit. As for the watch, I gave it to him as a gift when he got his first job. I thought, if he's going to be a professional, he should have something nice. It's engraved with his name. There's no mistaking it. It's the suit and watch he cherished. Michael's eyes shimmered with tears as he shared everything with me. He must have regretted the day he argued with my dad and kicked him out. I never knew Dad had such a stubborn side. They could have made up so easily if one of them had just reached out first. If you'd like, would you come bring flowers sometime? I think both my mom and dad would be happy. Is that really okay? I wasn't exactly a great-grandfather or a great father. I wonder what Ryan thought of me. I can't say for sure, but whenever my dad talked about this company, he looked so happy. He always spoke proudly about the company. He'd even say things like, "If I ever get the chance to work there, I'll be able to brag about it to everyone." I think the company and you were both very important to him. I see. Michael wiped his eyes, and his shoulders trembled slightly. Thank you for telling me all this today. Please allow me to visit your parents soon to pay my respects. Of course. I left the room and headed to the cafe where Kevin was waiting. So much had happened that day. The interview at the company I'd admired for so long, discovering my dad's hidden past, and meeting my grandfather, who is still alive. Man, you're late. What were you talking about? Well, you see. When I told Kevin the whole story, he burst into tears even louder than during the interview. Seeing his face made me laugh despite myself. Before I knew it, a tear slipped from my own eye too. A few days later, I got a call saying they wanted me to work for their company. I was officially hired by the top company I dreamed of working at, but it didn't feel real. It was too good to be true. A few days after that, my grandfather came to visit my home. We offered flowers and stared at the picture. Did your parents seem happy? Yes, they were always joking around, but we were at a home full of smiles. I see, and there's something else. I handed him a letter. While I was going through Dad's belongings after the interview, I found this. I hadn't noticed it before, but there was a letter addressed to me, and one that I think was meant for you. I haven't read what's inside. When I sorted through my dad's belongings, I found 2 letters. One was addressed to me, Alex, and the other was addressed to my grandfather. Michael's eyes widened as he carefully took the letter in his hands. May I read it now? Yes. The 2 of us began reading the letters together. To be honest, I didn't have the courage to read it alone. That's why I waited for Michael to come so we could read it together. In my letter, my dad had written, Alex, you actually have a grandfather. I'm sorry for lying and telling you he had passed away. And here's something that will really surprise you. Your grandfather is the president of the very company you've admired for so long. I had a big fight with him and left home. Since that day, I never reached out to him again. But if you ever find yourself in trouble, reach out to him. I'm sure he'll help you. If you're reading this letter, it probably means I didn't recover from my illness. Well, that's a lie. I'm heading off to see your mom first, but I can't help worrying about you. You're earnest and have a strong sense of justice. I worry that those traits might backfire on you. If you ever find yourself in a bind, don't hesitate to rely on your grandfather. I'm sure he'll come through for you. If he doesn't, sorry, but I believe he will. He's a serious and kind man at heart, and he won't be able to ignore you if it seems like he might pull out the tears. He's a total softie for that. Take care, my one and only son. I love you. Alex Carter. Man, even at the end, he couldn't stop being cheesy. By the time I finished reading, big tears were streaming down my face. When I glanced over, Michael was crying too. What did your letter say? He asked. He wrote that he forgives me and that he wished he had apologized sooner. But he also asked me to take care of you in his place. He warned me that if I didn't, he'd never forgive me. He even threatened to teach me a lesson in heaven. With a warning like that, I guess I've got no choice but to take care of you. That sounds just like him, Michael said. Yeah, exactly like him. We talked about Dad for a long time. Michael told me stories from before I was born. I shared stories about my dad after he became a father. I learned things I never knew about my dad as a young man, and Michael learned what he was like as a dad. It was so fun that time flew by. Wow, it's gotten late, I said. I think I've stayed too long. Sorry about that. Would it be all right if I came by again to bring flowers? Of course. You're welcome anytime. Michael stood up, gathered his things, and headed to the door. At the entrance, he turned around and said, So, you're really going to work at our company. I'm counting on you. But just to be clear, I didn't hire you because you're my grandson. I hired you because I believe in Alex Carter, the man. I'm rooting for your success. Thank you. I'll do my best. I had wondered if I was hired because I was his grandson, but he made it clear that wasn't the case. He saw me as an individual. He believed in me. I was just so happy. That's why, after I joined the company, I gave everything I had and worked as hard as I could. But there was one unexpected twist. Hey, you made it too, right? Looks like we're officially coworkers now. Kevin, you passed too. Let's do our best together. I made a slightly emotional but loyal friend. Kevin had also passed, and we ended up working together. The work was tough, and there was a lot to learn, but I was determined to keep giving my best at this company. Since that day, I've met with my grandfather from time to time. It still feels a little embarrassing to call him Grandpa, but I hope that one day I'll be able to say it naturally. When we meet, we always talk about my mom and dad. It's as if we're filling the time lost after my dad passed away. Michael listens to my stories with such joy in his eyes. Even though I thought I was all alone after losing both my parents, that wasn't true. I'm going to treasure my grandfather and the company he's dedicated his life to. Why are we even hiring a janitor like you? Isn't this event meant to be exclusive to the company? You don't belong here at all. This is not a place for underprivileged individuals like you. Rather, it is for elite professionals working for a first-class organization. Do you understand that? My kid works for a company that hosted a kickoff party at a posh hotel today. Employees' families were permitted to attend the celebration. And yet, this woman looked down on me because she thought I was a janitor. That's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? I tried to say, "Pardon me, but my kid works at this company." Splash. My head was covered in champagne. You have no right to respond as a janitor. It's likely that you have never even had champagne before. Think of today as your lucky day. You see my kindness. Even though I doubt you can notice the difference, feel free to savor the taste of luxury. What an eyesore you are. Get clean and get out of here. Funny. She chuckled cockily. She had no idea that this particular action would lead to her demise. Tom is my name. My age is 65. In the past, my parents co-owned a tiny coffee business. Regulars kept it running even if it wasn't a flourishing business. I heard my parents conversing in the living room one day when I was in high school. In retrospect, that event altered my life. What ought we to do? We may have to close the store if things continue as they are. Indeed, we won't be gaining additional clients anytime soon, in my opinion. Perhaps the moment has come. That coffee place was amazing. I was devastated to hear that. I wish to keep it from shutting down. How could I proceed? Perhaps we could continue to operate if we had more clients. I thought all night long, and I suggested something to my parents the following morning. Let's provide the regulars with discount coupons. They will have to give them to someone else because they are unable to use them themselves, even though they can put their name on the back. I'll distribute them. My parents laughed at my silly notion since they had all but given up. However, they decided to try it. Initially, a few new clients began to arrive. Word then got out. The place was flourishing before we realized it. My parents had to hire part-timers since they were unable to run the company on their own. We eventually established a second location close by. That one also performed well. We continued to grow and hire. It grew into a modest but prosperous chain, relieving my parents of their financial burden. I was relieved and returned to enjoying high school life. At the time, I didn't really have any goals or dreams. However, everything changed when I asked my parents if I wanted to attend college. I'd like to attend college since all of my friends are. Is that something you believe we can afford? What are you discussing? Who, in your opinion, enabled all of this success? It's under our control. Do as you please. Thank you so lot. It's all because of you. Hearing that made me very happy. I desired a position that would allow me to bring such joy to others. After much research, I made the decision to work as a business consultant. A consultancy firm engaged me. In order to identify issues and enhance performance, I would occasionally pretend to be a normal employee and other times to be a regular client. I consistently produced outcomes while working directly in the field. Companies eventually began calling me by name. In the industry, I gained some notoriety as Tom, the passionate consultant. Magazines and publishers asked me to write and do interviews, but I declined them all. Every business faces unique difficulties, and I wasn't sure I could adequately communicate that. Things seemed to be going great, but I did have one source of regret: my son, Kevin. I was so wrapped up in work that I barely spent time with my family. Dad, Can we go somewhere together for once? Sorry, work's been hectic lately. Can't you at least take a day off? I can't right now. I made a commitment. I have to see it through. So that's it, huh? You don't care about family. From that day on, my high school-aged son hardly spoke to me. That's not true. I was working hard for the sake of my family too. I thought he'd understand someday. But even after he graduated college and started working, that distance remained. I wanted to talk to Kevin. Just have a normal conversation. Feeling stuck, I asked my wife for help. Honestly, he probably got that clumsiness from you. She was exasperated, but she arranged a dinner for the three of us. She told me to write Kevin a short letter and put my heart into it. It was supposed to be a surprise. Then came the family dinner. Now we have a surprise, my wife announced. I reached for the letter in my pocket, but she gently grabbed my arm and stopped me. Confused, I looked at her. Then Kevin pulled out a letter from his pocket and started reading. To Dad. I used to resent you for not being around, but I made it through college and lived a good life thanks to you. Thank you. She must have told him to write it. There was a bit of sarcasm in there, but it still made me happy. Now for the next surprise, she said, giving me a nod. I read my letter aloud to Kevin. I know I wasn't much of a father. I truly regret that. Still, I want you to know how much I care about you. Thank you for growing into such a fine man. When I finished, my wife spoke. And now, one last surprise. She pulled out her own letter and began to read. To Tom and Kevin. I bet both of you wrote clumsy letters. Let's skip the dramatic and just get along already. After she finished reading, Kevin let out a soft chuckle. What the heck, Mom? Wasn't this supposed to be a surprise for Dad? Wait a minute. I was told it was a surprise for Kevin. Ah, so you tricked both of us. Well, Dad really is clumsy after all. Seeing Kevin smile for the first time in a while made me so happy I almost cried. Kevin's just as clumsy, you know. Now, let's eat, my wife said with a smile as she started serving the food. After that day, I began inviting Kevin out from time to time. Kevin was now a full-fledged working adult. We were both busy, and it wasn't easy to find time. But getting to go out with Kevin once in a while became something I really looked forward to. Eventually, I turned 65 and retired. From now on, I plan to enjoy my time with my wife in peace. Kevin had been promoted to section chief. Lately, he was especially busy and often worked late. Once things settled down, we'd finally be able to spend more time together. Then one day, Kevin, whom I hadn't seen in a while, came to talk to me about a possible job. I was hesitant, but then, for the first time, Kevin bowed his head to me. Dad, please. I agreed to go to Kevin's company under one condition. That condition was that I would work there as a janitor. If I was going to do it, I wanted to do it properly. Actually, I had been planning to clean the whole house from top to bottom once I retired. It just turned out to be Kevin's company instead. I felt excited. About a week after I started working at Kevin's company, I was wiping the glass doors at the entrance around lunchtime when a woman spoke to me. Excuse me, could you lend me something to wipe with? Flashy outfit. Big earrings. She clearly wasn't an employee. Well, maybe she was just in a PCH. Sure, just a second. I pulled a handkerchief from my pocket. Without a word, she took it like it was the most natural thing in the world. And to my shock, started wiping her high heels with it. I stood there stunned. I'm going out for lunch with that hot new hire. I've got to look good, you know. I'm so excited. Then she tossed the used handkerchief onto the ground. Hey, wait. What? Got a problem? No. A janitor getting all uppity. I saw mud at the entrance, by the way. Isn't that your fault? Do your job properly. That's what lowlifes like you are paid for. Come to think of it, it had poured this morning. Someone must have tracked in mud on their shoes. Even so, wiping her heels with someone else's handkerchief and then just throwing it away. As I stood there in disbelief, she waved past me and raised her voice. "Oh, over here. Come. Come on. Let's go." She linked arms with a man and walked off. How incredibly rude. I took a deep breath and went back to cleaning the glass. About a month later, the company president retired and a new president was appointed. They rented out a luxury hotel to hold a kickoff event. It was a big gathering to boost morale and bring everyone together. Families were invited too. Opportunities to dine in such a fancy hotel are few and far between. Well, might as well enjoy the meal. Everyone around, employees and their families, seemed to be having a good time with the same thought. Among them, a woman in a crimson dress stood out in particular. Wait a second. Is that the same woman from before? She was surrounded by a group of flabbers, soaking up the attention. Oh my, you're too much. People were buzzing around her with exaggerated praise. Must be exhausting for those around her. There's always someone like her wherever you go. Maybe it's just my old consulting habits kicking in, but I couldn't help noticing. Still, I should focus on enjoying the meal. My wife would be arriving soon. I decided to wait near the entrance of the venue. As I walked past the group, my eyes met those of the woman in the crimson dress. She marched straight toward me and spoke. "You look familiar. Excuse me, but what is it you do again?" "I do cleaning work here at the company." "Ah, I remember now. Oh, why is a janitor like you here? This is supposed to be an employee-only event, isn't it? You're way out of place. This is a gathering for top-tier professionals from a first-class company. This isn't a place for the likes of you. The rule clearly states that family members of employees can attend the kickoff. Even as a janitor, that shouldn't matter." And once again, her words were uncalled for. "Excuse me, but my son works for this company." Don't lie. You just snuck in here, didn't you?" "What? Come on. Someone like you, looking that shabby? No way you're connected to this company. People like you drag down the company's reputation. Get out of here before I call security." What does she mean by the company's reputation? Does working for a company require a certain image? That's just wrong. Wrong. I had to say something. "Ma'am, you talk about reputation, but don't you think your behavior as—" Splash! Just as I started to respond, she suddenly threw her glass of champagne on me. It drenched my head and soaked my clothes. Champagne dripped from me onto the floor as I stood frozen in shock. "A janitor like you talking back? How disrespectful. You've probably never even tasted champagne, have you? You poor fool." What a terrible thing to do. Still, I bowed my head. "I'm sorry if I upset you. Excuse me." I didn't have time for someone like her. As I turned to walk away, she grabbed my arm. "Hold it. You're a janitor, right? Clean this floor immediately." "I'm sorry, but—" "What? Talking back again. I'm Susan, wife of HR Director Greg. One word from me, and your fate at this company is sealed." Then she leaned in and whispered in my ear. "Your son works here, right? If you don't do as I say, he'll lose his job. Now kneel down like a proper janitor and start wiping." Everyone around stood by in silence. They must have been afraid of Susan. I didn't want to make a scene and cause trouble for Kevin. As I began to kneel before Susan, the speech of the president began. "Unfortunately, our company is going through difficult times. It's with great regret that I stepped down without turning things around. However, to ensure this company's future, I'm appointing a capable new president and forming a powerful leadership team. That will be my final task. Now, please welcome our new president and chairman." The room erupted in applause, and stepping onto the stage as the new president was my son, Kevin. "I'm Kevin, and I've been appointed as the new president. May I ask where the chairman is?" Our new chairman is also my father. Tom, please come up to the stage. A murmur spread across the room. Wait, is that the Tom? The consultant? The famous one? This is my first time seeing him. Kevin's father. The last names do match. I turned to Susan and said, "Excuse me, Kevin is waiting for me," then walked toward the stage. Soaking wet, I stepped up on stage, and Kevin looked at me in surprise. "You're soaked. What happened?" I just got the champagne fight started early," I said as I took the mic from Kevin. "I'm Tom, and I've accepted the position of chairman." I glanced over at Susan. Her eyes were wide open, and her face had turned pale. "As I take on this role, I want to make one thing clear," I said. "I am committed to restoring proper function within this company. Over the past few weeks, I've worked undercover as a janitor to investigate what's really happening here. In one department in particular, I witnessed high-performing employees being unjustly transferred. Others were being forced to entertain superiors under pressure from HR authority. Frankly, the list goes on. Sound familiar, Susan? Pouring champagne over the head of an employee's family member and discriminating against them based on their occupation. Do you not find that appalling?" All eyes in the room turned to Susan. Her face turned bright red, and she opened and closed her mouth, speechless. I addressed the room. A company is made up of people doing their jobs. If someone consistently acts out of line, the entire organization starts to rot. The priority is to remove that rot and create an environment where the company can operate properly. This is beyond the scope of a consultant's role. That's why I've accepted the powers of a chairman. I will do everything in my power to make this company a place where everyone can do their jobs, succeed, and feel secure. I'll do whatever it takes, and I ask for your support to protect this company and each and every one of you." I bowed deeply to the audience. After a short pause, the hall erupted into loud applause. And then, with her red dress trailing behind, Susan stormed toward the stage. She suddenly grabbed the mic from me and shouted, "Everyone listen to me. This is a conspiracy. A father and son takeover. They're going to turn you all into corporate slaves. It's ridiculous for a section chief to become president. My husband should have been president." Her voice rang so loud it made the mic screech. Everyone froze in shock at her outburst. Says the real slave driver. The heckle came from somewhere in the crowd. Susan screamed, "Who said that? Show yourself. I'll have you fired. Who was it? You? You?" She started pointing wildly, demanding names. Security rushed over. "Let go of me. Listen up, everyone. The president is my husband. He should be president." Even as she was being taken away, Susan kept shouting. The truth was, the president had originally intended to name Greg, Susan's husband, as his successor. Greg was Richard's cousin and had always been someone he trusted. But in recent years, Greg's behavior had deteriorated badly, and the company's performance followed suit. The president's long-standing trust in Greg clouded his judgment. Meanwhile, the one quietly holding the company together was none other than Kevin, who was section chief. After a few meetings, the president became convinced of Kevin's potential and asked him to become president. Kevin initially refused. "I can't be president. I'm still young, and I wouldn't have the support of senior staff. Besides, I've been hiding something from you. I'm in a serious relationship with your daughter, with marriage in mind." President Richard was stunned. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want my personal life to influence your decision," Kevin said, bowing deeply. "I see you're sincere and fair. I can trust you with my daughter, and with this company. It's selfish of me, but as your future father-in-law, I asked you to accept the role. It's for the good of the company." Moved by Richard's passion, Kevin finally agreed to become president. That's when the secret training began. After finishing his long days as section chief, he spent every night in the president's office, learning how to run the company. He got home late and was exhausted. Still, his sense of duty kept him going. Once he was up to speed, he began having in-depth discussions with Richard, day after day, late into the night. But even with all that effort, Kevin couldn't find a breakthrough. So he finally told Richard about me. I'm the son of Tom, the passionate consultant. Maybe, just maybe, my father could help. Without hesitation, Richard bowed to Kevin. Please ask for his advice. Beg him to help this company. I'll pay him from my own pocket if I must. My father's not the kind of man who works for money. Let's just explain the situation honestly and ask with sincerity. I hate to pull him out of retirement, but it's our only hope. That's how I got involved. Called into the president's office and briefed on the company's troubles, I agreed immediately. To understand what was happening inside, I asked to work freely, as a janitor. They gave me a uniform and cleaning supplies, and I got to work. I never imagined it would all lead to what happened at the kickoff event. After Kevin finished his speech as new president, I explained to him why I showed up soaking wet. He apologized, saying, "It's fine. If it helps the company, I'll endure anything." That was nothing. I almost lost my composure back there, but I kept that to myself. The next day, Greg came to the president's office to bow his head. Kevin looked at him with disappointment and asked, "I respected you from the moment I joined the company. How did it come to this?" Greg bowed deeply. I had no excuse. "Please discipline me as you see fit." His voice was heavy with remorse. Kevin raised his voice. "You were such an admirable person. What happened to you? I'm truly sorry. It's shameful. But please, let me explain." And so Greg began his confession. My wife and I were overjoyed when I was promoted to head of HR. Of course they were. Being named a department head is a recognition of years of hard work. One day, I told my wife maybe becoming president isn't such a far-off dream. She said she'd support me all the way. It seems Susan started to change around that time. She formed a social club for the wives to gain influence and hosted events to get closer to powerful subordinates and department heads. That much was still acceptable. But then people started cozying up to her just for power, with nothing but flattery and praise. She gradually began wielding power as the HR director's wife, and eventually became addicted to it. By the time he realized, there was no turning back. No matter what he said, she insisted it was all for his sake. Even when he tried to stop her, he gave in to her desire to be the president's wife and ended up abusing his authority. In truth, she was always strong-willed and determined. That's what I had admired about her. She supported me for years, but now she's doing things like this. Greg bowed his head, his face twisted in anguish. I'm prepared to resign. My wife made grave mistakes as a human being, but I'm the one who let it happen. And I failed the company too. I accept any punishment. His voice trembled and his shoulders shook. There was no doubt. He was truly remorseful. Kevin furrowed his brows and clenched his jaw. In the heavy silence, I finally spoke. Greg, you'll be transferred. No title. No subordinates. You won't be involved in any of the company's core functions. It's a remote assignment, frankly, a dead-end post. Still, I want you to prove your commitment by producing results there. Can you do that? Greg responded without hesitation. I humbly accept. There's company housing available. Will you be bringing your wife? If possible, yes. Wouldn't it be better to leave her here? The living conditions will be very different, and it may only make things harder for you. I'm sorry, but she's someone I once truly loved. I want to take the time to talk things through with her properly. I see. Fortunately, it's a quiet post. You'll have the time. Take it slow and talk things over. I'll issue the transfer order immediately. Greg expressed his gratitude and left the room. A heavy silence settled over the president's office. Kevin let out a deep sigh. Then, with frustration, he said to me, "He was such a good person." Kevin stared off into the distance. Yeah, I could tell. I had sensed that too, in the way Greg spoke. You wouldn't know this, Dad, but back in the day, he used to look out for me a lot. Took me to events, invited me to study sessions, even gave me business books he thought were good reads. I really looked up to him. I thought we cold. He stopped mid-sentence and covered his eyes with his right hand. I heard a sniffle. Drops hit the desk. I thought of the times I failed to be there as a father, and I couldn't find any words to comfort Kevin. I gently placed a hand on his shoulder. The love for family, doing what's right for the company. Both are important. But even the smallest rift, the slightest unraveling, can lead people to make mistakes. And unless those mistakes are corrected, someone will continue to suffer. When you can't see your own mistakes, or can't fix them, even if you do, it's okay to lean on someone else. I don't want to see anyone cry anymore. I will rebuild this company. This is my final mission.